You may remember the narcissist as impossibly confident behind closed doors, someone who carried themselves like an untouchable force of desire. In the bedroom, they seemed commanding, almost godlike, sure of themselves, dominant, intoxicating. That image can feel unshakable, especially if you're a survivor who remembers intimacy as the one place where the relationship briefly felt alive. But here is the truth most people never consider. Beneath that intense display, there is fear, constant, quiet, and overwhelming. Not fear of losing you, but fear of being seen. And that fear is the engine behind everything they do sexually. At the beginning, sex may have felt like the only time the cruelty paused, the only moment when the coldness disappeared and the emotional distance collapsed. Psychologically, this is why so many survivors cling to those memories. The nervous system associates intimacy with relief, safety, and connection, even when the rest of the relationship is riddled with harm. You may have told yourself, at least here they love me, at least here we're real. But psychologists would tell you that this is exactly where the narcissist's terror lives. That intensity you experienced was not passion rooted in closeness. It was panic dressed up as desire. Sex was never about bonding. It was camouflage. Narcissists understand, often unconsciously, that sexual intensity is the strongest distraction they have. As long as you are overwhelmed by closeness, sensation, and chemistry, you are less likely to examine the emotional emptiness everywhere else. In their mind, sex functions like stage lighting in a magic act, bright enough to keep your attention away from what's missing. They are not trying to merge with you emotionally. They are trying to prevent you from looking too closely at them, because they know that if the performance ever falters, even briefly, you might look into their eyes and realize there is no emotional presence there. What frightens them is not abandonment, but exposure, the moment you recognize that the powerful figure holding you is hollow inside. One of their greatest sexual anxieties is the pressure to convince you that you are experiencing something irreplaceable. For someone trauma-bonded, intimacy often becomes the only proof that the relationship has depth. Outside the bedroom, there may be manipulation, dismissal, or emotional neglect. Inside it, there is intensity, focus, and attention. Psychologically, this creates a powerful hook. Sex becomes the glue that holds the trauma bond together. The narcissist amplifies it deliberately, making it consuming and addictive, so that even when you are starved emotionally, you remain attached to the illusion of connection. What they never admit is that maintaining this illusion terrifies them. For a narcissist, sex is not an act of love or mutual presence. It is a performance tied directly to their identity. Their sense of worth depends on being seen as exceptional, desirable, dominant, unforgettable. If they fail to produce that reaction in you, their internal image fractures. During intimacy, they are not relaxing into connection. They are hypervigilant, monitoring your breathing, your sounds, your movements, your expressions, searching for confirmation that the fantasy is still intact. Psychologists describe this as narcissistic validation seeking taken into the body. Sex becomes evidence, not intimacy, evidence that they still control your attention and can evoke a response no one else can. In this dynamic, you are not being met as a full person. You are being used as a mirror. Your reactions are meant to reflect their greatness back to them. It's less about touching you and more about touching their own ego through you. This is why any deviation from the script unsettles them. If you don't respond with awe, if your body doesn't react the way they imagined, if you remain neutral or distracted, it triggers panic. Neutrality feels like rejection. A lack of emotional fireworks feels like annihilation. Because if sex is no longer their strongest weapon, the entire structure they rely on begins to collapse. Another fear they carry, often buried deep, is that you will eventually recognize how mechanical the experience truly is. Narcissists know, on some level, that there is no real emotional presence in their intimacy. It is patterned, rehearsed, predictable, more like a sequence of learned behaviors than a shared emotional exchange. Survivors often describe a strange sensation during sex, a moment where the body is there but the person is not. Psychologists would call this dissociation. The narcissist is performing while emotionally absent, and you can feel that absence even if you don't yet understand it. That emptiness is what they desperately hope you never name. They fear the moment you realize that what felt intense was not depth, and what felt powerful was not connection. Because once you see that sex with them lacks soul, warmth, and genuine presence, the spell breaks. And when that happens, they lose the last place where their illusion could hide. Survivors often describe the same unsettling realization once the fog begins to lift. It felt rehearsed, like they were watching a role being played rather than sharing a moment with another human being. That instinct is accurate. From a psychological standpoint, a narcissist approaches sex the way an actor approaches a well-practiced script. It is something they do, not something they experience. They are not attuning to your emotions or your body. They are focused on delivering an effect. And beneath that polished performance sits a quiet but persistent fear that you will eventually recognize the emptiness behind it. They are acutely aware, even if only subconsciously, that their touch lacks genuine warmth, that their kisses are hollow gestures rather than expressions of desire, and that their eyes do not carry authentic longing. This is why they amplify intensity. When they cannot offer emotional depth, they substitute volume. Faster movements, stronger pressure, heightened drama. Psychologists would say this is compensatory behavior, an attempt to mask an internal deficit with external excess. What frightens them most is not that you might leave, but that you might finally see the truth. The sense of closeness you feel is not originating from them at all. The connection you experience during sex is generated by you. Your empathy, your imagination, your capacity for emotional presence fill the space they leave empty. Survivors often engage in what psychologists call reverse projection, projecting their own warmth, sincerity, and emotional intelligence onto someone who does not possess those qualities. You assume they feel what you feel because that is how healthy connection works. But with a narcissist, that assumption becomes the illusion. They quietly accept credit for the emotional depth your nervous system is creating, while contributing very little of their own. If you look back carefully, you may notice something that becomes obvious only in hindsight. They never allow intimacy to slow down. Everything stays rushed, heightened, theatrical. Slowness would require presence. Pauses would demand emotional availability. Sustained eye contact would invite honesty. All of these are dangerous to someone who cannot access genuine connection. From a psychological perspective, slowing down strips away the performance and exposes the absence beneath it. That is why the pace stays fast and the rhythm never settles. Real intimacy requires patience and vulnerability, and those are capacities a narcissist simply does not have. Another fear they carry is that you will eventually notice they feel nothing for you even in moments that should be emotionally sacred. This is one of the most painful truths for survivors to face. Even at the peak of closeness, there is no emotional movement inside them. Their arms may be around you, but their inner world remains untouched. When someone truly loves you, their body responds in subtle but profound ways. Their breathing softens, their muscles relax, their energy becomes enveloping. A narcissist cannot access that state. Their physical closeness is either stiff, rushed, or exaggerated, but it never lands emotionally because it is not rooted in feeling. They use physical proximity as camouflage. Your need for affection becomes the cover for their inability to give it. From a psychological lens, this is a form of emotional substitution. They offer the appearance of closeness to distract from its absence. One of their deeper anxieties is that you will realize the desire you believed they had for you was never genuine. If you slow down enough to observe, you may see that they are not leading intimacy from feeling. They are responding to you. Your excitement triggers their imitation. Your passion cues their performance. Your emotion sets the tone, and they follow seconds later to maintain the illusion of synchrony. But you are not meeting in the middle, you are carrying the moment, and they are mirroring it. There is also a more hidden fear that surfaces in some narcissists. The concern that their sexual behavior will expose a truth they are desperately trying to conceal. In certain cases, hypersexuality is not about desire or confidence at all. It functions as a disguise. By exaggerating sexual behavior, flirting excessively, boasting, and chasing validation, they attempt to reinforce an identity they feel unsure about internally. Psychologically, this is identity defense. overcompensating in one direction to avoid confronting something deeper. The performance is not meant to connect. It is meant to convince both you and themselves that the mask is real. In every one of these dynamics, the common thread is fear, not of intimacy, but of exposure. And once you begin to see that, the power of the illusion starts to weaken. At its core, all of this behavior is an attempt to prove something, mostly to themselves. They are not acting from confidence. They are acting from doubt. Psychologically, the louder and more exaggerated the performance becomes, the more likely it is compensating for an internal fracture. Beneath the bravado sits a constant fear that someone will eventually notice the repetition, connect the dots, and recognize the pattern for what it truly is. Their sexual behavior is not driven by authentic desire or connection. It functions as a disguise, a smoke screen meant to obscure what they do not want their partner, society, or even their own conscious mind to confront. One of the anxieties they carry is that you will eventually sense just how disconnected they are during sex. Not disconnected in a fleeting way, but fundamentally detached, emotionally, mentally, and energetically. Women are not experienced as partners to them. They are used as props to uphold a carefully curated identity. From a psychological perspective, this is objectification taken to its extreme. Intensity replaces intimacy, force substitutes for feeling, and once the act ends, their presence evaporates because there was never any real engagement to sustain. What you felt as emptiness was not imagined. It was the absence of genuine attraction. They are essentially playing a role they believe a normal or socially acceptable man is supposed to embody. That role is exhausting to maintain, which is why the fear of exposure is so strong. Their desire is not rooted in attraction but in image protection. The moment you recognize that the performance exists to defend an illusion, everything they have built, their masculinity, sexual confidence, and supposed dominance, collapses. Psychologically, narcissistic identity structures are fragile. They rely entirely on external validation, and once the illusion cracks, there is nothing solid underneath to hold it together. Another fear that haunts them is far more concrete and dangerous. The possibility that you will realize every sexual health issue you have faced began with them. Deep down, they are aware of their recklessness. They know how many people they sleep with in secret, how casually they dismiss protection, testing, and responsibility. They live with the anxiety that one day you will stop attributing symptoms to stress or bad luck and instead look at the timeline clearly. When you do, the truth becomes unavoidable. You were healthy before them, and everything changed after. That realization is devastating for them because it exposes a level of harm they cannot rationalize away. It reveals that they were not only emotionally unsafe but physically unsafe. From a psychological and ethical standpoint, this is a profound violation. They did not merely betray trust. They gambled with your body as if it were disposable. Once that awareness sets in, the fantasy of passion and chemistry disintegrates. No illusion survives the recognition that someone knowingly put your health at risk without remorse or consideration. An even darker fear follows closely behind, that you will understand they knew something was wrong long before you did. They notice symptoms. They sense changes in their body and in yours. They feel when something is off. And instead of taking responsibility, getting tested, being honest, or stopping sexual contact, they choose silence. Psychologically, this reflects extreme entitlement and lack of empathy. They gamble on denial, hoping the problem disappears, even as they continue to expose you. That is not ignorance. It is willful neglect. This behavior crosses the line into physical abuse. In many places, knowingly exposing someone to sexual health risks is a criminal offense, and rightly so. There is a disturbing overlap between chronic infidelity, reckless sexual behavior, and narcissistic traits. Withholding sexual history, lying about partners, and concealing risks are inherently exploitative acts. From a psychological perspective, they reflect a dark entitlement, the belief that your well-being is secondary to their impulses and their need for control. In its most disturbing form, there is even a sadistic undercurrent. The mindset becomes, if I have to live with this, so should you. There is a twisted sense of power in spreading harm, in watching someone else suffer consequences they themselves refuse to face. Whether this is conscious, unconscious, or driven by deep internal rage is ultimately irrelevant. The outcome is the same. Harm is done, trust is destroyed, and responsibility is avoided. And that is why accountability matters. These behaviors are not accidents. They are patterns, and patterns come with consequences. Regardless of intention, individuals who cause harm through exploitation and negligence can and should be held responsible for what they inflict on others. With that, we bring this discussion to a close. Thank you for staying and listening. Until next time, let the healing begin and continue.